Lake Bell, come on up.
Hello.
I'll sort of start us off, I guess, before we start taking audience questions.
Words. Okay.
To give you guys a chance to come up with some really good ones. We'll only accept good questions. One question I always want to ask everybody who makes a movie is, where did this come from? Where did the story come from?
It was sort of organic how it all kind of laid out. I mean, initially, just the inception of the idea really just came from me liking. I just wanted to always say "in a world" for like no reason ever, and with no justification.
Which is plenty reason to make a movie.
I think that's a great place to start. But no, I remember saying it for really like mundane things. You know, my buddies would be like, "I'm gonna go to the bathroom." And I'll be like, in a world where one person needs to go to the bathroom, you know, and they're like, please, like, enough, like, seriously. And then I'd be like, oh God, that's so weird how, like, no ladies have ever done that.
Right.
Can you think of anyone? And then, you know, the conversation would ensue. And then it became more of an interesting discussion about ladies in voiceover and representatives of the authoritative, omniscient voice. And then I was like, oh, that's an interesting place to start. And then, wouldn't it be interesting to see a woman sort of take on that goal of being the first woman to utter the words in a world, you know? And then I thought I was always interested in the voiceover industry in general, and dialects and accents.
And I would imagine as an actress you have spent a lot of time in places like that, in sound booths.
Indeed. Actual dialects and accents have always been something that I collected since I was a kid, and sort of like a dinner party trick, really, for my family. You know, where I was little and sort of annoyingly precocious, and I'd always do accents and stuff, and be like, Lake, do the thing, do stuff, you know, and I'd be like, okay, and you know. It was the Late Lake Show, literally. That's what they would call it.
The Late
Lake Show.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a show that I had when I was 4.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is it on YouTube? Can we see?
It's not. It was pre-YouTube.
Pre-YouTube.
Yeah. But yeah, it was like something people collected stamps, and I was really into accents, and then it became more sophisticated when I went to drama school in England, and I started like learning how to do accents phonetically, and it was exciting. The idea of voice was to treat it so technically and nuanced. You could create characterization and really be anyone. You know, you could be any social niveau or nationality or gender, for that matter. I mean, even fun fact for the movie, Gustav Warner, played by Ken Marino, is constantly on speakerphone with his like sort of rotund Jewish agent guy, Siegel. You know, that's played by me.
Oh wow!
So I would traditionally not get cast as that.
Right.
So
they can do amazing things with prosthetics.
Yes.
So I wouldn't rule it out.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
The community, the film community, is really tremendous.
Yeah.
Movie magic. But not that good.
So,
but voiceover was so cool because it was like the first type of acting experience where you're not judged by what you look like. You really.
Right.
The blind voice.
Yeah. Cool.
That's why it always enthralled me. So when I came to LA, I wanted to do that. I thought I was gonna be one of the great voiceover artists. I wouldn't have to become a waitress. I would be like straight into the big bucks. I heard you could make money doing it. I was like, guess what? I went to London and learned how to make accents, you know. But then I got to LA and it was so clicky and there was such a hierarchy.
You weren't Don LaFontaine,
I was
so
not.
there was no way.
So I became a waitress.
Yeah. But then you got to make movies, so Who's Laughing Last
I know,
now?
This is like a 93-minute audition for me in the voiceover community.
Yeah. So we got a question back there.
Hello, it was fantastic.
Thank you.
I accosted you in the bathroom for a picture. Thank you.
Oh yeah, hi.
The vocal piece was a really interesting part of the movie, of course, the basis, but I also found the 3 romantic relationships really fascinating. And, of course, to us, they may seem sort of random, but I know you had a vision. So can you explain to us how you got from the dad and his younger weird girlfriend to the husband and wife having issues, and you and the other guy being like the most awkward 32-year-olds I've ever seen?
31. I'll let it slip. But no, I think I was always interested in the voiceover industry being kind of an umbrella to tell the story, and then to concentrate on the interpersonal relationships of this family and the father-daughter competition story, and the multitude of relationships and interactions between Carol and the people that were in her life. I always sort of envision them as having their own little movies, like Jamie has her own story and vision and things she's doing, and TV shows she watches, and problems with her washing machine, and just like her own existence over here. And then I felt that way with all of them. I love them all so much, and I think all of those characters really just, like any writer here, there's like a multitude of writers here tonight, but anyway, each character started very nonfiction, and then I pulled from my family and therapy, obviously. But then the real people informed what it then sort of like transformed and evolved into, and so really every character is evolved into an amalgamation of people I've either been exposed to, or family members, or like my brother's ex-girlfriend who had a problem. It's always things that you certainly know, but yeah. So that's why I think it's multifaceted, is because in my life there are so many people that I care about and love that become little chaoses in my own trajectory, or that help me see help me sort of see the path of what I really want to do. And that's certainly for Danny and Mo. That's certainly what they provide for Carol.
Back there.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting that like the movie's named after Don LaFontaine's famous phrase, and it also kind of paints him in a very frank light. They're kind of like the interviews at the beginning, kind of like he was very blunt about who he thought about himself. When you were approaching this movie, what were you like? Were you trying to paint him, or did you discover things about him and if they're really interesting or anything? Because he seems like he's just an albatross, an omnipresent force in everything in this movie.
Well, I did want it to be very much an homage, or even just a love letter to him in some respects, because I have great respect for him. There are very few voiceover artists in the world, or ever, that you might know the name of, or who really changed the game. Anybody you talk to in the voiceover industry will attest for the fact that he really did. He was a legend, and he passed away 5 years ago, and really Sam Soto's character is possible because of Don LaFontaine ever existing, and his neuroses and chip on his shoulder is everything to do with the fact that he's not Don LaFontaine. So I felt like it was important to build that set of circumstances and reality first, in order for everybody to to understand what we're talking about, and even though it's voiceover industry is somewhat of a stepchild to the movie industry, it is incredibly important, and within their own community, it's life and death, So, but yeah, actually, I was in cahoots with their estate as well, because he actually owns In a World and In a World Where, like his estate owns that, because he wrote it. And he made it famous. He made it iconic.
So not just In a World, but In a World Where?
Yeah, both of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. I didn't know.
But I felt like In a World Where didn't sound as good.
In a world where? In a world where what? I don't know. What is this movie about?
Yeah,
I don't.
this movie sucks.
Right there.
I was really impressed by like the tone the movie had. It didn't really, it wasn't like ironically looking at this business. It was kind of
Thank you.
mocking the industry part of it, but not the people who did
Totally.
it so much. Was that as a writer and then a director, was that a hard balance to strike?
Yeah, I think tone is always, especially in comedy, you're constantly investigating and paying great attention to it. That said, I am not particularly a fan of comedy that is at someone else's. You're sort of laughing at somebody else's expense. Even in my prodding of the sexy baby vocal virus, I do it with love. I really do, and respect, because it's. The characters that even act unsavory, like Sam Soto, I did want there to be something inherently likable, or some sort of generosity of spirit at one point, but mainly because that's what I like. You know, I think in a way it's more provocative to have a sweet message than a sort of naughty or like blue message. You know, so.
I'm going to be selfish and ask a question of my own.
Okay.
Sorry, but we'll get back to you guys.
At least
So-
you're admitting the problem.
Yeah. No. But the cast in this movie is so great, and I would love to hear about how you put it together, and then also specifically, you were, I'm assuming, writing this for yourself from the beginning. Were you writing any of these parts for the specific actors that you had in mind?
Yes, I agree, and I will stand by that. I am so proud of this cast. They are also very, very dear friends of mine. Like if I was going to have a dinner party, these are probably the people I would invite. But so part of that is how I got them in this movie. I mean, I cashed in a lot of favor chips on this puppy. You know, so but I didn't want to cast anyone that wasn't right for it, because that would do me a disservice as a director and also my friends. So I wanted to make sure it was the right people for the roles, but I did write both Danny and Mo for Rob Corddry and Michaela Watkins. That was never a question. And then the other people who came on are comrades and comedy buddies and part of my family and community, and I'm very lucky that it's almost harder when you ask your friends, you know what I mean? It's like, you know what shit they got going on in their lives. You know that like the last thing they need to do is read a script, and you know, and to lend 2-3 weeks of their life to kind of create a character and like kind of be serious and not be, you know, a sketch, you know, because in a way asking them to be emotional and take that chance for a lot of these guys is a rare opportunity, and also a little scary.
Well, it looks like they had a miserable time, so
Yeah, it was.
yeah. Good for them.
Yeah.
You know, for just like
I'm
doing it for you.
genuinely, so, if anything, the thing that made me work so hard on this movie was making them proud. You know, I really wanted the experience to be enjoyable in every department, you know, every creative department that showed up, you know, for the film, including the cast and the cast department. But I wanted everyone to have a good time, because I do maintain the optimism that making movies is a really fun endeavor and should be. You know, it's a privilege. So.
Yeah. Back there. Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming here and bringing this film. It was wonderful.
My pleasure.
You kind of asked my question. I was curious
Sorry.
about the casting, about Brian's question. I was curious about the casting, but something that I really loved and appreciated is that this was like the real inner workings of a film. You didn't have Hollywood, and you didn't have the background with the Hollywood sign in the hills. You didn't have studios in New York or anything. We didn't really know where you were, and I loved that. I loved feeling like, you know, okay, it's really happening. It's something that we don't usually see.
That, you know, it's so I'm so glad you point that out, because I worked really hard to sort of make it we know it's Hollywood, so, and I've seen a myriad of Hollywood movies where we see iconic landmarks and whatnot, and I worked really hard to frame out, you know, any sort of remnants of iconic Hollywoodness, because we already know it is. So in a way, I wanted to sort of extract us from that. And same with, I mean, there was literally a moment where my DP, Seamus Tierney, was, you know, set up this beautiful shot of like the sun setting, and it was of Danny and Mo's exterior, and it was really stunning lighting, and you know, the Capitol Records building was glistening in the background, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. We just have to frame out the Capitol Records building, but otherwise it's perfect. And he was like, you know, but you know what I'm saying? It's like I've seen those icons before. In a way, I felt like it kind of takes you out of it. They're like famous people, you know. It's like celebrities or something, you know. Same with the iPhone. I love my iPhone, but I didn't want it anywhere in this movie, because in a way it's like a celebrity. It is too. There's too much emotion attached to it, you know. It just takes me out of the movie almost. It was like too current or something, you know.
Back there.
I'm wondering how you're going to distribute. I mean, what are your plans for releasing and distributing and all of that?
In
So-
theaters, August 23rd.
I have the great privilege.
Should we go big? Like,
I mean,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Thanks to you guys.
I have the great privilege to be here tonight with my distributor, Roadside Attractions, who picked it up, and we're going to as many cities as they'll let me go to. They're right over there. And also, I can say this, but also internationally, it got picked up Sony International, so it's going to go to whatever countries will allow it. I don't know how it'll translate, but I'm sure it's
What would it be called in
the world.
in the world?
Just improvise now.
Right there. Either one of you guys.
Oh, they're together. I like that. It's very romantic. Hi.
My question has to do with how much of the movie sounded off the cuff. Did you write a lot of the stammering and the interruption and the embarrassed gurgling and the freaking out? Was that written or did that just happen on set?
You okay? Do you need some water? Can we get her some water?
That's kind of how I talk. but I will say that it's a great question. Like, is there improvisation in it? And I always take that as a huge compliment because, first of all, improvising, unless that's literally how you're making your movie, if that's you set up guidelines and that's kind of what your script is a great a luxury. If you have a scripted piece and you're on a low budget and you have 20 days to shoot the movie, you don't have time to luxuriate in improvising. So it's very frustrating when you have such talented, wonderful improvisers on your set and you have to get the script in the can. Because actually, as Dimitri Martin was saying, we were talking about this and how strange there wasn't a lot of improvised moments. There's like a little handful because you do the scene one. You make sure you get the scene in the can and then have your fun takes, at the end. But we were talking about it, and he's like, in a way, sometimes, especially in a scripted situation, you don't know if your improvised things that you're doing on set that are so hilarious are gonna really work in the edit. It might just be funny in that moment, and then in the economy of trying to get the story to move forward, there's a reason why we have that blueprint of a script, and so I was really adamant to make sure that it was pretty tight, the script, so that mainly so I could do my job, the other 12,000 jobs I had to do on that set. But there are moments of lovely improvised lines like, I'm sure they just did Oral, by Nick Offerman. Classic Offerman. It's just, and Dimitri Martin's run about the switches and, the blue towel and not the blue one, but that was improvised as well, So there's little sort of like a little pepper on top occasionally, but yeah.
Right there.
A question about the music. In terms of like your wish list, did you get the songs that you wanted, and how would that have affected the karaoke scene if you couldn't have gotten that Tears for Fears song?
Let me tell you something. The reason for which I am not making any money on this movie is the music. I had to relinquish so many monetary benefits to make that happen. There was no choice. Again, timing became an issue. I remember my producers just like beads of sweat, just like coming out of their pores and pouring down when we were like, I'd written the Tears for Fears song into the movie. So that was the only one that I was like, it's non-negotiable. And I even said that in my meetings with financiers. I was like, it's really important to me that this song is in there. Kind of being naive, by the way. I didn't know the process of it. I just was saying that, sort of being bold for no reason. Like, I was like, it has to be. Like, who am I?
This is my line in the sand.
I know. I don't know why. But it was really important. And I was like, all right, I might as well exercise this, this experiment. But yeah, I'll be honest, the karaoke moment was done in half an hour. I had a half an hour to shoot it. And it was super frenetic. And Dimitri Martin and I had to get into, it wasn't even like a set, it was like a corner. And we didn't have a karaoke machine, it didn't show up. So someone brought their laptop out and just like, it was one of my producers, they just put it up and they were just like online and we were holding the things, we were holding the mics and we were like, I can't even read that. I don't know the words of that song, can we go to the next one? come on, we gotta go. And so the only ones that came up on like YouTube karaoke search were like the biggest songs ever that have ever been made, like The Police, you know. So every song that we sang was like more expensive than the other ones. So these were the lesser, and then the Ice Cube song is just one that I happen to have in my pocket. That is my favorite song. Clearly, I have my eyes closed. It was the only one that I could do without reading, because you couldn't read it on the laptop anyway. It was fucking useless, you know. So I just was like, just going for that one, and so it was very run and gun. It was not super romantic.
But you got them all.
But we got them, and it was a very difficult get. I mean, there's some incredible songs in this. I mean, even Jerry Rafferty, you got a little Eddie Money in there. I mean, and I had to, my music supervisor had to negotiate a very complicated deal to allow these people allow me to have these songs in the movie.
Back there.
How long when you were writing it did you know that like that was going to be the movie?
It's so funny because, of course, you know, it was before the Hunger Games was a thing. You know what I mean? And I think it was like a book that had come out, but it wasn't like movies yet. I always liked the idea of, you know, I in general will like dork out to uber sci-fi kind of, you know, I like the idea of a female Mad Max, basically. And one day, and a total fantasy film that I want to make with Cameron. But I've actually pitched it to her too. I'm like, what if it? She's like, it's so cool. I'm like, I know, like we should make it, right?
She's like, well,
But should we?
we did make it.
Should
So
we? Yeah.
that was
I'm
it.
like,
That's all.
you know, I can't tell if she's
Yeah.
serious. You know, I'm waiting for that call. Anyway, yeah. So I just like the idea. You know, making up trailers was such a fun exercise in general. Like even just writing the copy, which you never even hear of, Welcome to the Jungle Gym, which is like a romantic comedy for children. Like, you know, like meet Kim Moody. You know, she is 5 and out of luck in the sandbox. You know, and. It was just like a cool exercise, especially just sort of spoofing and having a good time. So Amazon Games was like the ultimate goof off, you know. And I like poured over it. I wanted to make sure all those words were just ridiculous. And for some reason, I always wanted it to be based on the Prussian War. that was like key, you know, for that speech that Nancy gives, you know.
Yeah.
It's not exactly about the movie, but do you have a favorite accent to do?
Okay. I mean, honestly, I put all of my favorites in there because I wanted to shine as much as possible. I was like, I can't do them all, but I've got like the ones that I have in my pocket. I threw up in that movie because it was an opportunity to be. I mean, Southeast London for sure. I mean, when I'm hammered, that's the one that comes out. But you know, I'm definitely an accent aficionado. But yeah, those are the ones. I didn't want to fail.
Maybe a couple more. Yeah, right back there.
Gina Davis is so awesome and such a great advocate for women and girls in media. Like, I was so excited to see her on the screen and in that role. How did that relationship happen?
So Gina Davis, you know, was somebody. Obviously, I was always a fan of Gina Davis, but an agent sort of brought her name up, and I was like, "There's no way she would come in and do a day, you know, on this movie, is there?" And then it was literally like that, and then it turned out that she actually has an institute called the Gina Davis Institute. It's got her name all over it. And it's dedicated to. Do you know this? That it's dedicated. Okay, sorry. So she has this institute. I'm gonna turn to you guys. But so it's dedicated to basically helping media for young women represent the female gender in a sort of a more savory light. You know, it's like that's ostensibly what it is, what it's dedicated to. I didn't know that when I cast her in the part, and we sat down for lunch at the Beverly Hills Hotel. It was super Hollywood, and she revealed that she was sort of like, she sort of thought it was obvious, you know, that's why she was giving this sort of grand speech of the movie. about women and media and all this stuff, and I had to play along. She gave me the card that said the Gina Davis Institute, and it's like women in media. I was like, oh my God, this is so perfect. And so then we had a sort of serious conversation about like feminism and ordered like shrimp cocktail.
There you go. So maybe one last question, and it's got to be brilliant.
Oh, this is horrible. Don't do that.
Okay, you're up.
So what was it like kissing Dimitri Martin?
Brilliant.
Pretty good.
Brilliant.
It's pretty good.
It was good. How do I answer this? Married.
He's not here, though.
By the way, no, it's always awkward. You know how, right? It doesn't seem awkward. He's already awkward. The two of us are mucho awkwardo. And it was super, that scene it's so funny when you look back on these scenes and they feel so, like, I have such lovely memories of every scene. This is my first film. It's so emotional, and every waking moment, as you well know, it's just, it's profound. And the fact that we did it in 20 days, I have still, at this point, obviously it's still new, that I have sense memory of every problem that we faced, for every shot, every angle even, and it's still so ripe and new. And for instance, in that, we constantly had some asshole driving by yelling and screaming every time. And in fact, there's even there's one of our lights in the shot, in one of the shots, and we had to paint it out in post, and I had to beg for the money to like get it painted out properly. It was like I look at that shot and all I can think about is like the light and the asshole and like all the things that it's like. And so I know it's sweet, but that's really what is obviously about making movies. That's why it's fun, But yeah, thank you honestly for being here, because this is. As my movie is now in theaters and people, it's like the romantic moment where people can go out and like purchase popcorn and like go and get Milk Duds or whatever you're into, and I didn't know how important that feeling is, and it's the first time I'm feeling it. I guess since you're a little kid, you kind of think of it, and this is the moment where I get to share it with people, and it's profound.
Everybody here should tell their friends how awesome this movie is. And when it opens here in Austin on the 23rd, we want the movie to make buku bucks here in Austin, so you will come back with your next movie and show it to us. So everybody, thanks a lot for coming. Thanks, Taylor Bell, and we'll see you afterwards.